The book of Asher, we're continuing on starting with chapter 36 through 40. Chapter 36 goes over Jacob and his house goes to Bethel, where mighty God Ahiah appears to him, calls his name Israel, and blesses him. Chapter 37 goes over Jacob returned to Shechem. The kings of Canaan again assemble against Jacob. Jacob's 10 sons with 102 of their servants fight against the Canaanites and Amorites and are successful. Chapter 38 and 39, the sons of Jacob destroy many cities of Canaan and all their people. And chapter 40 goes over the remaining 21 kings of Canaan, fearing the sons of Jacob, make a permanent peace with them. Chapter 36. At that time mighty God Ahiah appeared unto Jacob, saying, Arise, go to Bethel, and remain there, and make there an altar to mighty God Ahiah, who appeared unto thee, who delivered thee and thy sons from affliction. And Jacob rose up with his sons, and all belonging to him, and they went and came to Bethel according to the word of mighty God Ahiah. And Jacob was 99 years old when he went up to Bethel, and Jacob and his sons and all the people that were with him remained in Bethel in Luz, and he there built an altar to mighty God Ahiah, who appeared unto him, and Jacob and his sons remained in Bethel 6 months. And at that time died Deborah, the daughter of Uz, the nurse of Rebekah, who had been with Jacob, and Jacob buried her beneath Bethel under an oak that was there. And Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the mother of Jacob, also died at that time in Hebron, the same in Kirith Arba, and she was buried in the cave of Machpelah, which Abraham had brought from the children of Heth. And the life of Rebekah was 133 years, and she died. And when Jacob heard that his mother Rebekah was dead, he wept bitterly for his mother, and made a great mourning for her, and for Deborah her nurse, beneath the oak. And he called the name of that place Alon Bekoth. And Laban the Syrian died in those days, for mighty God Ahiah smote him, because he transgressed the covenant that existed between him and Jacob. And Jacob was 100 years old when mighty God Ahiah appeared unto him, and blessed him, and called his name Israel. And Rachel, the wife of Jacob, conceived in those days. And at that time Jacob and all belonging to him journeyed from Bethel to go to his father's house in Hebron. And whilst they were going on the road, and there was yet but a little way to come to Ephraim, Rachel bare a son, and she had hard labor, and she died. And Jacob buried her in the way to Ephraim, which is Bethlehem, and he set a pillar upon her grave, which is there unto this day. And the days of Rachel were 45 years, and she died. And Jacob called the name of his son that was born to him, which Rachel bare unto him, Benjamin, for he was born to him in the land on the right hand. And it was after the death of Rachel that Jacob pitched his tent in the tent of her handmaid Bilhah. And Reuben was jealous for his mother Leah on account of this, and he was filled with anger, and he rose up in his anger, and went and entered the tent of Bilhah, and he thence removed his father's bed. At that time the portion of birthright, together with the kingly and priestly offices, was removed from the sons of Reuben, for he had profaned his father's bed, and the birthright was given unto Joseph, the kingly office to Judah, and the priesthood unto Levi, because Reuben had defiled his father's bed. And these are the generations of Jacob who were born to him in Paddan. And the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah were Reuben, the firstborn, and Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and their sister Dinah. And the sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, were Gad and Asher. And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, were Dan and Naphtali. These are the sons of Jacob which were born to him in Paddan Aram. And Jacob and his sons and all belonging to him journeyed and came to Mamre, which is Kirith Arba, that is in Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac sojourned, and Jacob with his sons and all belonging to him dwelt in his father's in Hebron. Dwelt with his father in Hebron. And his brother Esau and his sons and all belonging to him went to the land of Seir and dwelt there, and had possessions in the land of Seir. And the children of Esau were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly in the land of Seir. And these are the generations of Esau that were born to him in the land of Canaan, and the sons of Esau were 5. And Adah bare to Esau his firstborn Eliphaz, and she also bare to him Ruel, and Labamah born to him Jeush, Yaalam, and Korah. These are the children of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Eliphaz, the sons of Esau, was Timon, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, Kenaz, Amalek. And the sons of Ruel were Nakath, Zerach, Shammah, and Mizah. And the sons of Jeush were Timnah, Alva, Jethed. And the sons of Yaalam were Allah, Phinor, and Kenaz. And the sons of Korah were Teman, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Aram. These are the families of the sons of Esau according to their dukedoms in the land of Seir. And these are the names of the sons of Seir, the Horite inhabitants of the land of Seir: Lotan, Shabal, Zebion, Anah, Dishan, Ezer, and Dishon, being 7 sons. And the children of Lotan were Hori, Heman, and their sister Timnah, that is, Timnah, who came to Jacob and his sons, and they would not give ear to her, and she went and became a concubine to Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and she bare to him Amalek. And the sons of Shabal were Alvan, Manahath, Ebal, Shepho, and Amnon. And the sons of Zebion were Ajah and Anah. This was that Anah who found the Yemen in the wilderness when he fed the asses of Zebion, his father. And whilst he was feeding his father's asses, he led them to the wilderness at different times to feed them. And there was a day that he brought them to one of the deserts of the seashore, opposite the wilderness of the people. And whilst he was feeding them, behold, a very heavy storm came from the other side of the sea, and rested upon the asses that were feeding there, and they all stood still. And afterward about 120 great and terrible animals came out from the wilderness at the other side of the sea, and they all came to the place where the asses were, and they placed themselves there. And those animals from their middle downward were in the shape of the children of men, and from their middle upward some had the likeness of bears, and some the likeness of the kephas, and tails behind them from between their shoulders reaching down to the earth, like the tails of the Dutchafath. And these animals came and mounted and rode upon these asses, and led them away, and they went away unto this day. And one of these animals approached Anah, and smote him with his tail, and then fled from that place. And when he saw this work, he was exceedingly afraid of his life, and he fled and escaped to the city. And he related to his sons and brothers all that had happened to him. And many men went to seek the asses, but could not find them. And Anah and his brothers went no more to that place from that day following, for they were greatly afraid of their lives. And after the children of Anah, the sons of Seir, were Dishon and his sister Libahama. And the children of Dishon were Hemdan, Eshban, and Ithran, and Cheran. And the children of Ezer were Bilhan, Zaavan, and Achan. And the children of Dishon were Uz and Aran. These are the families of the children of Seir the Horite, according to their dukedoms in the land of Seir. And Esau and his children dwelt in the land of Seir the Horite, the inhabitant of the land, and they had possessions in it, and were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob and his children and all belonging to them dwelt in their father Isaac in the land of Canaan. as mighty God Ahiah had commanded Abraham their father. Chapter 37. And in the 105th year of the life of Jacob, that is the 9th year of Jacob's dwelling with the children in the land of Canaan, he came from Padan. And in those days Jacob journeyed with his children from Hebron, and they went and returned to the city of Shechem. Then they and all belonging to them, and they dwelt there, for the children of Jacob obtained good and fat pasture land for their cattle in the city of Shechem, the city of Shechem having then rebuilt, and there was in it about 300 men and women. And Jacob and his children and all belonging to him dwelt in the part of the field which Jacob had bought from Hamor, the father of Shechem, when he came from Padan Aram, before Simeon and Levi had smitten the city. And all those kings of the Canaanites and Amorites that surrounded the city of Shechem heard that the sons of Jacob had again come to Shechem and dwelt there. And they said, Shall the sons of Jacob the Hebrew again come to the city and dwell therein, after they had smitten its inhabitants and driven them out? Shall they now return and also drive out those who are dwelling in the city, or slay them? And all the kings of Canaan again assembled, and they came together to make war with Jacob and his sons. And Jasher, king of Tapnach, sent also to all his neighboring kings, to Elan, king of Gaash, and to Eri, king of Shiloh, and Parathon, king of Chazar, and to Sushi, king of Sarton, and to Laban, king of Bethchoran, and to Shabir, king of Athanate Ma, saying, Come up to me and assist me, and let us smite Jacob and the Hebrew and his sons and all belonging to him, for they are again come to Shechem to possess it and to slay its inhabitants as before. And all these kings assembled together and came with all their camps, a people exceedingly plentiful, like the sand upon the seashore, and they were all opposite to Tapnach. And Jasher, king of Tapnach, went forth to them with all his army, and he encamped with them opposite to Tapnach without the city. And all these kings they divided into 7 divisions, being 7 camps against the sons of Jacob. And they sent a declaration to Jacob and his sons, saying, Come you all forth to us, that we may have an interview together in the plain, and revenge the cause of the men of Shechem, whom you slew in their city. And you will now again return to the city of Shechem, and dwell therein, and slay its inhabitants as before. And the sons of Jacob heard this, and their anger was kindled exceedingly at the words of the kings of Canaan. And 10 of the sons of Jacob hastened and rose up, and each of them girt on his weapons of war. And there were 102 of their servants with them, equipped in battle array. And all these men, the sons of Jacob, were their servants, went toward the kings, and Jacob their father was with them, and they all stood upon the heap of Shechem. And Jacob prayed to mighty God Ahiah for his sons, and he spread forth his hands to mighty God Ahiah, and he said, O mighty God Ahiah, my El Elohi, thou art an almighty God, and thou art our Father. Thou didst form us, and we are the works of thine hands. I pray thee, deliver my sons through thy mercy from the hand of their enemies, who are this day coming to fight with them, and save them from their hand. For in thy hand is power and might to save the few from the many. And give unto my sons thy servants strength of heart and might to fight with their enemies, to subdue them, and make their enemies fall before them. And let not my sons and their servants die through the hand of the children of Canaan. But if it seem good in thy eyes to take away the lives of my sons and their servants, take them in thy great mercy through the hand of thy ministers, that they may not perish this day by the hands of the kings of the Amorites. And when Jacob ceased praying to mighty God Ahiah, the earth shook from its place, and the sun darkened, and all these kings were terrified, and a great consternation seized them. And mighty God Ahiah hearkened to the prayer of Jacob, and mighty God Ahiah impressed the hearts of all the kings and their hosts with the terror and awe of the sons of Jacob. For mighty God Ahiah caused them to hear the voice of the chariots and the voice of mighty horses from the sons of Jacob, and the voice of a great army accompanying them. And these kings were seized with great terror at the sons of Jacob. And whilst they were standing in their quarters, behold, the sons of Jacob advanced upon them with 112 men, with a great and tremendous shouting. And when the king saw the sons of Jacob advancing toward them, they were still more panic struck, and they were inclined to retreat from before the sons of Jacob as at first, and not to fight with them. But they did not retreat, saying, It would be a disgrace to us thus twice to retreat from before the Hebrews. And the sons of Jacob came near and advanced against all these kings and their armies. And they saw, and behold, it was a very mighty people, numerous as the sand of the sea. And the sons of Jacob called unto mighty God Ahiah and said, Help us, O mighty God Ahiah, help us and answer us, for we trust in thee, and let us not die by the hand of these uncircumcised men, who this day have come against us. And the sons of Jacob girt on their weapons of war, and they took in their hands each man his shield and his javelin, and they approached to battle. And Judah the son of Jacob ran first before his brethren, and 10 of his servants with him, and went toward these kings. And Jasher king of Tapnach also came forth first with his army before Judah. And Judah was Jasher and his army coming toward him, and Judah's wrath was kindled, and his anger burned within him, and he approached to battle, in which Judah ventured his life. And Jasher and all his army were advancing toward Judah, and he was riding upon a very strong and powerful horse. And Jasher was a very valiant man, and covered with iron and brass from head to foot. And whilst he was upon the horse, he shot arrows with both hands from before and behind, as was his manner in all his battles, and he never missed the place to which he aimed his arrows. And when Jasher came to fight with Judah, and was darting many arrows against Judah, mighty God Ahiah bound the hand of Jasher, and all the arrows that he shot rebounded upon his own men. Wow. And notwithstanding this, Jasher kept advancing toward Judah to challenge him with the arrows, but the distance between them was about 30 cubits. And when Judah saw Jasher darting forth with arrows against him, he ran to him with his wrath excited might. And Judah took up a large stone from the ground, and its weight was 60 shekels. And Judah ran toward Jasher, and with the stone struck him on his shield, that Jasher was stunned with the blow, and fell off from his horse to the ground. And the shield burst asunder out of the hand of Jasher, and through the force of the blow sprang to the distance of about 15 cubits, and the shield fell before the second camp. And the kings that came with Jasher saw at a distance the strength of Judah the son of Jacob, and what he had done to Jasher, and they were terribly afraid of Judah. And they assembled near Jasher's camp, seeing his confusion. And Judah drew his sword and smote 42 men of the camp of Jasher, and the whole of Jasher's camp fled before Judah, and no man stood against him. And they left Jasher and fled from him, and Jasher was still prostrated upon the ground. And Jasher, seeing that all the men of his camp had fled from him, hastened and rose up with terror against Judah, and stood upon his legs opposite Judah. And Jasher had a single combat with Judah, placing shield toward shield, and Jasher's men all fled, for they were greatly afraid of Judah. And Jasher took his spear in his hand to strike Judah upon his head, but Judah had quickly placed his shield to his head against Jasher's spear, so that the shield of Judah received the blow from Jasher's spear, and the shield was split in two. And when Judah saw that his shield was split, he hastily drew his sword and smote Jasher at his ankles, and cut off his feet, that Jasher fell upon the ground, and the spear fell from his hand. And Judah hastily picked up Jasher's spear, with which he severed his head, and cast it next to his feet. And when the sons of Jacob saw what Judah had done to Jasher, they all ran into the ranks of the other kings, and the sons of Jacob fought with the army of Jasher and the armies of all the kings that were there. And the sons of Jacob caused 15,000 of their men to fall, and they smote them as if smiting at gourds, and the rest fled for their lives. And Judah was still standing by the body of Jasher, and stripped Jasher of his coat of mail. And Judah also took off the iron and brass that was about Jasher, and behold, 9 men of the captains of Jasher came along to fight against Judah. And Judah hastened and took up a stone from the ground, and with it smote one of them upon the head, and his skull was fractured, and the body also fell from the horse to the ground. And the 8 captains that remained, seeing the strength of Judah, were greatly afraid, and they fled, and Judah with his 10 men pursued them, and they overtook them and slew them. And the sons of Jacob were still smiting the armies of the kings, and they slew many of them. But those kings daringly kept their stand with their captains, and did not retreat from their places. And they exclaimed against those of their armies that fled from before the sons of Jacob. But none would listen to them, for they were afraid of their lives, lest they should die. And all the sons of Jacob, after having smitten the armies of the kings, returned and came before Judah, and Judah was still slaying the 8 captains of Jasher, and stripping off their garments. And Levi saw Elam, king of Gaash, advancing toward him with his 14 captains to smite him, but Levi did not know it for certain. And Elam with his captains approached nearer, and Levi looked back and saw that battle was given him in the rear, and Levi ran with 12 of his servants, and they went and slew Elam and his captains with the edge of the sword. Chapter 38. And Huri, king of Shiloh, came up to assist Elam, and he approached Jacob, when Jacob drew his bow that was in his hand, and with an arrow struck Huri, which caused his death. And when Huri, king of Shiloh, was dead, the 4 remaining kings fled from their stations with the rest of the captains, and they endeavored to retreat, saying, "We have no more strength with the Hebrews, after their having killed the 3 kings and their captains, who were more powerful than we are." And when the sons of Jacob saw that the remaining kings had removed from their station, they pursued them, and Jacob also came from the heap of Shechem, from the place where he was standing, and they went after the kings, and they approached them with their servants. And the kings and the captains with the rest of their army, seeing that the sons of Jacob approached them, were afraid of their lives, and fled till they reached the city of Chazar. And the sons of Jacob pursued them to the gate of the city of Chazar, and they smote a great smiting amongst the kings and their armies, about 4,000 men. And whilst they were smiting the army of the kings, Jacob was occupied with his bow, confining himself to smiting the king, and he slew them all. And he slew Parathon, king of Chazar, at the gate of the city of Chazar, and he afterwards smote Sushi, king of Sorton, and Laban, king of Bethchorin, and Shabir, king of Machanama, and he slew them all with arrows, an arrow to each of them, and they died. And the sons of Jacob, seeing that all the kings were dead, and that they were broken up and retreating, continued to carry on the battle with the armies of the kings opposite the gate of Chazar, and they still smote about 400 of their men. And 3 men of the servants of Jacob fell in that battle, and when Judah saw that 3 of his servants had died, it grieved him greatly, and his anger burned within him against the Amorites. And all the men that remained of the armies of the kings were greatly afraid of their lives, and they ran and broke the gate of the walls of the city of Chazar, and they all entered the city for safety. And they concealed themselves in the midst of the city of Jasher, for the city of Jasher was very large and extensive. And when all these armies had entered the city, the sons of Jacob ran after them to the city. And the four mighty men experienced in battle went forth from the city and stood against the entrance of the city with drawn swords and spears in their hands, and they placed themselves opposite the sons of Jacob, and would not suffer them to enter the city. And Naphtali ran and came between them, and with his sword smote two of them, and cut off their heads at one stroke. And he turned to the other two, and behold, they had fled, and he pursued them, overtook them, smote them, and slew them. And the sons of Jacob came to the city, and saw, and behold, there was another wall to the city, and they sought for the gate of the wall, and could not find it. And Judah sprang upon the top of the wall, and Simeon and Levi followed him, and they all three descended from the wall into the city. And Simeon and Levi slew all the men who ran for safety into the city, and also the inhabitants of the city with their wives and little ones they slew with the edge of the sword, and the cries of the city ascended up to heaven. And Dan and Naphtali sprang upon the wall to see what caused the noise of the lamentation, for the sons of Jacob felt anxious about their brothers, and they heard the inhabitants of the city speaking with weeping and supplication, saying, Take all that we possess in the city, and go away, only do not put us to death. And when Judah, Simeon, and Levi had ceased smiting the inhabitants of the city, they ascended the wall, and called to Dan and Naphtali, who were upon the wall, and to the rest of their brothers. And Simeon and Levi informed them of the entrance into the city, and all the sons of Jacob came to fetch the spoil. And the sons of Jacob took the spoil of the city of Jasher, the flocks and the herds and the property, and they took all that could be captured, and went away that day from the city. And on the next day the sons of Jacob went to Sordon, for they heard that the men of Sorton, who had remained in the city, were assembling to fight with them for having slain their king. And Sorton was very high and fortified city, and it had a deep rampart surrounding the city. And the pillar of the rampart was about 50 cubits, and its breadth 40 cubits, and there was no place for a man to enter the city on account of the rampart. And the sons of Jacob saw the rampart of the city, and they sought an entrance in it, but could not find it. For the entrance to the city was at the rear, and every man that wished to come into the city came by the road, and went around the whole city, and he afterward entered the city. And the sons of Jacob, seeing they could not find the way into the city, their anger was kindled greatly. And the inhabitants of the city, seeing that the sons of Jacob were coming to them, were greatly afraid of them, for they had heard of their strength and what they had done to Jasher. And the inhabitants of the city of Sorton could not go out toward the sons of Jacob after having assembled in the city to fight against them, lest they might thereby get into the city. But when they saw that they were coming toward them, they were greatly afraid of them, for they had heard of their strength and what they had done to Jasher. So the inhabitants of Sorton speedily took away the bridge off of the road of the city from its place before the sons of Jacob came, and they brought it into the city. And the sons of Jacob came and sought the way into the city, and could not find it. And the inhabitants of the city went up to the top of the wall, and saw, and behold, the sons of Jacob were seeking an entrance into the city. And the inhabitants of the city reproached the sons of Jacob from the top of the wall, and they cursed them. And the sons of Jacob heard their reproaches, and they were greatly incensed, and their anger burned within them. And the sons of Jacob were provoked at them, and they all rose and sprang over the rampart with the force of their strength, and through their might passed the 40 cubits breadth of the rampart. And when they had passed the rampart, they stood under the wall of the city, and they found all the gates of the city enclosed with iron doors. And the sons of Jacob came near to break open the doors of the gates of the city, and the inhabitants did not let them, for from the top of the wall they were casting stones and arrows upon them. And the number of the people that were upon the wall was about 400 men. And when the sons of Jacob saw that the men of the city would not let them open the gates of the city, they sprang and ascended the top of the wall, and Judah went up first to the east part of the city. And Gad and Asher went up after him to the west corner of the city, and Simeon and Levi to the north, and Dan and Reuben to the south. And the men who were on the top of the wall, the inhabitants of the city, seeing that the sons of Jacob were coming up to them, they all fled from the wall, descended into the city, and concealed themselves in the midst of the city. And Issachar and Naphtali that remained under the wall approached and broke the gates of the city, and kindled a fire at the gates of the city, that the iron melted. And all the sons of Jacob came into the city, that they and all their men, and they fought with the inhabitants of the city of Sarton, and smote them with the edge of the sword, and no man stood up before them. And about 200 men fled from the city, and they all went and hid themselves in a certain tower in the city. And Judah pursued them to the tower, and he broke down the tower, which fell upon the men, and they all died. And the sons of Jacob went up the road of the roof of that tower, and they saw, and behold, there was another strong and high tower at a distance in the city, and the top of it reached to heaven. And the sons of Jacob hastened and descended, and went with all their men to that tower, and found it filled with about 300 men, women, and little ones. And the sons of Jacob smote a great smiting amongst those men in the tower, and they ran away and fled from them. And Simeon and Levi pursued them, when 12 mighty and valiant men came out to them from the place where they had concealed themselves. And those 12 men maintained a strong battle against Simeon and Levi, and Simeon and Levi could not prevail over them. And those valiant men broke the shields of Simeon and Levi, and one of them struck at Levi's head with his sword, when Levi hastily placed his hand to his head, for he was afraid of the sword. And the sword struck Levi's hand, and it wanted but little to the hand of Levi being cut off. And Levi seized the sword of the valiant man in his hand, and took it forcibly from the man, and with it he struck at the head of the powerful man, and he severed his head. And 11 men approached to fight with Levi, for they saw that one of them was killed. And the son of Jacob fought, but the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them, for those men were very powerful. And the sons of Jacob, seeing that they could not prevail over them, Simeon gave a loud and tremendous shriek, and the 11 powerful men were stunned at the voice of Simeon's shrieking. And Judah at a distance knew the voice of Simeon's shouting, and Naphtali and Judah ran with their shields to Simeon and Levi, and found them fighting with those powerful men, unable to prevail over them, as their shields were broken. And Naphtali saw that the shields of Simeon and Levi were broken, and he took 2 shields from his servants, and brought them to Simeon and Levi. And Simeon and Levi and Judah on that day fought all 3 against the 11 mighty men until the time of sunset, but they could not prevail over them. And this was told unto Jacob, and he was sorely grieved, and he prayed unto mighty God Ahiah, and he and Naphtali his sons went against these mighty men. And Jacob approached and drew his bow, and came nigh unto the mighty men, and slew 3 of their men with the bow, and the remaining 8 turned back. And behold, the war waged against them in the front and rear, and they were greatly afraid of their lives, and could not stand before the sons of Jacob, and they fled from before them. And in their flight they met Dan and Asher coming toward them, and they suddenly fell upon them, and fought with them, and slew 2 of them. And Judah and his brothers pursued them, and smote the remaining of them, and slew them. And all of the sons of Jacob returned and walked about the city, searching if they could find any men. And they found about 20 young men in a cave in the city, and Gad and Asher smote them all. And Dan and Naphtali lighted upon the rest of the men who had fled and escaped from the second tower, and they smote them all. And the sons of Jacob smote all the inhabitants of the city of Sortan, but the women and little ones they left in the city, and did not slay them. And all the inhabitants of the city of Sortan were powerful men. One of them would pursue 1,000, and two of them would not flee from 10,000 of the rest of men. And the sons of Jacob slew all the inhabitants of the city of Sortan with the edge of the sword, that no man stood up against them, and they left the women in the city. And the sons of Jacob took all the spoil of the city, and captured what they desired, and they took flocks and herds and property from the city. And the sons of Jacob did unto Sortan and its inhabitants as they had done to Jasher and its inhabitants, and they turned and went away. Chapter 39. And when the sons of Jacob went from the city of Sortan, they had gone about 200 cubits, when they met the inhabitants of Tapnach coming toward them, for they went out to fight with them, because they had smitten the king of Tapnach and all his men. So all that remained in the city of Tapnach came out to fight with the sons of Jacob, and they thought to retake from them the booty and the spoil which they had captured from Jasher and Sortan. And the rest of the men of Tapnach fought with the sons of Jacob in that place, and the sons of Jacob smote them, and they fled before them, and they pursued them to the city of Orbilan, and they all fell before the sons of Jacob. And the sons of Jacob returned and came to Tapnach to take away the spoil of Tapnach. And when they came to Tapnach, they heard that the people of Orbilan had gone out to meet them to save the spoil of their brethren. And the sons of Jacob left 10 of their men in Tapnach to plunder the city, and they went out toward the people of Orbilan. And the men of Orbilan went out with their wives to fight with the sons of Jacob, for their wives were experienced in battle, and they went out about 400 men and women. And all the sons of Jacob shouted with a loud voice, and they all ran toward the inhabitants of Orbilan, and with a great and tremendous voice. And the inhabitants of Orbilan heard the noise of the shouting of the sons of Jacob, and their roaring like the noise of lions, and like the roaring of the sea and its waves. And fear and terror possessed their hearts on account of the sons of Jacob, and they were terribly afraid of them, and they retreated and fled before them into the city. And the sons of Jacob pursued them to the gate of the city, and they came upon them in the city. And the sons of Jacob fought with them in the city, and all their women were engaged in slinging against the sons of Jacob. And the combat was very severe amongst them the whole of the day till evening. And the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them, and the sons of Jacob had almost perished in that battle. And the sons of Jacob cried unto mighty God Ahiah, and greatly gained strength toward evening. And the sons of Jacob smote all the inhabitants of Orbilan by the edge of the sword, men, women, and little ones. And also the remainder of the people who had fled from Sortan, the sons of Jacob smote them in Orbilan. And the sons of Jacob did unto Orbilan and Tapnach as they had done to Jasher and Sortan. And when the women saw that all the men were dead, they went upon the roofs of the city and smote the sons of Jacob by showering down stones like rain. And the sons of Jacob hastened and came into the city, and seized all the women, and smote them with the edge of the sword. And the sons of Jacob captured all the spoil, and booty, flocks, and herds, and cattle. And the sons of Jacob did unto Mechnahama as they had done to Tapnach, to Jasher, and to Shiloh, and they turned from there and went away. And on the 5th day the sons of Jacob heard that the people of Gaash had gathered against them to battle, because they had slain their king and their captains, for there had been 14 captains in the city of Gaash, and the son of Jacob had slain them all in the first battle. And the sons of Jacob that day girt on their weapons of war, and they marched to battle against the inhabitants of Gaash. And in Gaash there was a strong and mighty people of the Amorites, and Gaash was the strongest and best fortified city of all the cities of the Amorites, and it had 3 walls. And the sons of Jacob came to Gaash, and they found the gates of the city locked, and about 500 men standing at the top of the outermost wall, and a people numerous as the sand upon the seashore were in ambush for the sons of Jacob from without the city at the rear thereof. And the sons of Jacob approached to open the gates of the city, and whilst they were drawing nigh, behold, those who were in ambush at the rear of the city came forth from their places and surrounded the sons of Jacob. And the sons of Jacob were enclosed between the people of Gaash, and the battle was both to their front and rear, and all the men that were upon the wall were casting from the wall upon them arrows and stones. And Judah, seeing that the men of Gaash were getting too heavy for them, gave a most piercing and tremendous shriek, and all the men of Gaash were terrified at the voice of Judah's cry, and men fell from the wall at his powerful shriek, and all those that were from without and within the city were greatly afraid of their lives. And the sons of Jacob still came nigh to break the doors of the city, when the men of Gaash threw stones and arrows upon them from the top of the wall, and made them flee from the gate. And the sons of Jacob returned against the men of Gaash who were with them from without the city, and they smote them terribly, as striking against gourds, and they could not stand against the sons of Jacob, for fright and terror had seized them at the shriek of Judah. And the sons of Jacob slew all those men who were without the city, and the sons of Jacob still drew nigh to effect an entrance into the city, and to fight under the city walls, but they could not find, for all the inhabitants of Gaash who remained in the city had surrounded the walls of Gaash in every direction, so that the sons of Jacob were unable to approach the city to fight with them. And the sons of Jacob came nigh to one corner to fight under the wall. The inhabitants of Gaash threw arrows and stones upon them like showers of rain, and they fled from under the wall. And the people of Gaash who were upon the wall, seeing that the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them from under the wall, reproached the sons of Jacob in these words, saying, What is the matter with you in the battle, that you cannot prevail? Can you then do unto the mighty city of Gaash and its inhabitants as you did to the cities of the Amorites that were not so powerful? Surely to those weak ones amongst you, you did those things, and slew them in the entrance of the city, for they had no strength when they were terrified at the sound of your shouting. And will you now then be able to fight in this place? Surely here you will all die, and we will avenge the cause of those cities that you have laid waste. And the inhabitants of Gaash greatly reproached the sons of Jacob, and rivaled them with their gods, and continued to cast arrows and stones upon them from the wall. And Judah and his brothers heard the words of the inhabitants of Gaash, and their anger was greatly roused. And Judah was jealous of his mighty God in this matter, and he called out and said, O mighty God Ahiah, help us, send help to us and our brothers. And he ran at a distance with all his might, with his drawn sword in his hand, and he sprang from the earth, and by dint of his strength mounted the wall, and his sword fell from his hand. And Judah shouted upon the wall, and all the men that were upon the wall were terrified, and some of them fell from the wall into the city and died. And those who were yet upon the wall, when they saw Judah's strength, they were greatly afraid and fled for their lives into the city for safety. And some were emboldened to fight with Judah upon the wall, and they came nigh to slay him when they saw there was no sword in Judah's hand. And they thought of casting him from the wall to his brothers. And 20 men of the city came up to assist them, and they surrounded Judah, and they all shouted over him and approached him with drawn swords, and they terrified Judah. And Judah cried out to his brothers from the wall. And Jacob and his sons drew the bow from under the wall and smote 3 of the men that were upon the top of the wall. And Judah continued to cry, and he exclaimed, O mighty God Ahiah, help us. O mighty God Ahiah, deliver us. And he cried out with a loud voice upon the wall, and the cry was heard at a great distance. And after this cry he again repeated to shout, and all the men who surrounded Judah on the top of the wall were terrified, and they each threw his sword from his hand at the sound of Judah's shouting and his tremor, and fled. And Judah took the swords which had fallen from their hands, and Judah fought with them and slew 20 of their men upon the wall. And about 80 men and women still ascended the wall from the city, and they all surrounded Judah. And mighty God Ahiah impressed the fear of Judah in their hearts, that they were unable to approach him. And Jacob and all who were with him drew the bow from under the wall, and they slew 10 men upon the wall, and they fell below the wall before Jacob and his sons. And the people upon the wall, seeing that 20 of their men had fallen, they still ran toward Judah with drawn swords, but they could not approach him, for they were greatly terrified at Judah's strength. And one of their mighty men, whose name was Arud, approached to strike Judah upon the head with his sword, when Judah hastily put his shield to his head, and the sword hit the shield, and it was split in 2. And this mighty man, after he had struck Judah, ran for his life at the fear of Judah, and his feet slipped upon the wall, and he fell amongst the sons of Jacob who were below the wall, and the sons of Jacob smote him and slew him. And Judah's head pained him from the blow of the powerful man, and Judah had nearly died from it. And Judah cried out upon the wall, owing to the pain produced by the blow. When Dan heard him, and his anger burned within him, and he also rose up and went at a distance, and ran and sprang from the earth, and mounted the wall with his wrath excited strength. And when Dan came upon the wall near unto Judah, all the men upon the wall fled, who had stood against Judah, and they went up to the second wall, and they threw arrows and stones upon Dan and Judah from the second wall, and endeavored to drive them from the wall. And the arrows and stones struck Dan and Judah, and they had nearly been killed upon the wall. And wherever Dan and Judah fled from the wall, they were attacked with arrows and stones from the second wall. And Jacob and his sons were still at the entrance of the city below the first wall, and they were not able to draw their bow against the inhabitants of the city, as they could not be seen by them, being upon the second wall. And Dan and Judah, when they could no longer bear the stones and arrows, they fell upon them from the second wall. They both sprang upon the second wall near the people of the city. And when the people of the city who were upon the second wall saw that Dan and Judah had come to them upon the second wall, they all cried out and descended below between the walls. And Jacob and his sons heard the noise of the shouting from the people of the city, and they were still at the entrance of the city, and they were anxious about Dan and Judah, who were not seen by them, they being upon the second wall. And Naphtali went up with his wrath excited might, and sprang upon the first wall to see what caused the noise of shouting which they had heard in the city. And Issachar and Zebulun drew nigh to break the doors of the city, and they opened the gates of the city and came into the city. And Naphtali leaped from the first wall to the second, and came to assist his brothers and the inhabitants of Gaash, who were upon the wall, seeing that Naphtali was the third who had come up to assist his brothers. They all fled and descended into the city, and Jacob and his sons and all their young men came into the city to them. And Judah and Dan and Naphtali descended from the wall into the city and pursued the inhabitants of the city. And Simeon and Levi were from without the city and knew not that the gate was open. And they went up from there to the wall and came down to their brothers into the city. And the inhabitants of the city had all descended into the city, and the sons of Jacob came to them in different directions, and the battle raged against them from the front and rear. And the sons of Jacob smote them terribly, and slew about 20,000 of them, men and women. Not one of them could stand up against the sons of Jacob. And the blood flowed plentifully in the city, and it was like a brook of water, and the blood flowed like a brook to the outer part of the city, and reached the desert of Bethchorin. And the people of Bethchorin saw at a distance the blood flowing from the city of Gaash, and about 70 men from amongst them ran to see the blood, and they came to the place where the blood was. And they followed the track of the blood, and came to the wall of the city of Gaash, and they saw the blood issue from the city, and they heard the voice of crying from the inhabitants of Gaash, for it ascended unto heaven, and the blood was continuing to flow abundantly like a brook of water. And all the sons of Jacob were still smiting the inhabitants of Gaash, and were engaged in slaying them till evening, and about 20,000 men and women. And the people of Chorin said, Surely this is the work of the Hebrews, for they are still carrying on war in all the cities of the Amorites. And those people hastened and ran to Bethchorin, and each took his weapon of war, and they cried out to all the inhabitants of Bethchorin, who also girt on their weapons of war, to go and fight with the sons of Jacob. And when the sons of Jacob had done smiting the inhabitants of Gaash, they walked about the city to strip all the slain, and coming in the innermost part of the city, and the farther on they met 3 very powerful men, and there was no sword in their hand. And the sons of Jacob came up to the place where they were, and the powerful men ran away, and one of them had taken Zebulun, who he saw was a young lad and of short stature, and with his might dashed him to the ground. And Jacob ran to him with his sword, and Jacob smote him below his loins with the sword, and cut him in two, and the body fell upon Zebulun. And the second one approached and seized Jacob to fell him to the ground, and Jacob turned to him and shouted to him, while Simeon and Levi ran and smote him on the hips with the sword, and fell him to the ground. And the powerful man rose up from the ground with wrath excited might, and Judah came to him before he had gained his footing, and struck him upon the head with the sword, and his head was split, and he died. And the third powerful man, seeing that his companions were killed, ran from before the sons of Jacob, and the sons of Jacob pursued him in the city. And whilst the powerful man was fleeing, he found one of the swords of the inhabitants of the city, and he picked it up and turned to the sons of Jacob and fought them with that sword. And the powerful man ran to Judah to strike him upon the head with the sword, and there was no shield in the hand of Judah. And whilst he was aiming to strike him, Naphtali hastily took his shield and put it to Judah's head, and the sword of the powerful man hit the shield of Naphtali, and Judah escaped the sword. And Simeon and Levi ran upon the powerful man with their sword and struck at him forcibly with their swords, and the two swords entered the body of that powerful man, and it divided it into lengthwise. And the sons of Jacob smote the three mighty men at that time, together with all the inhabitants of Gaash, and that day was about to decline. And the sons of Jacob walked about Gaash, and took all the spoils of the city, even the little ones and women. They did not suffer to live. And the sons of Jacob did unto Gaash as they had done to Sortan and Shiloh. The last chapter of today, chapter 40. And the sons of Jacob led away all the spoil of Gaash, and went out of the city by night. They were going out marching toward the castle of Beth-chorin, and the inhabitants of Beth-chorin were going to the castle to meet them. And on that night the sons of Jacob fought with the inhabitants of Beth-chorin in the castle of Beth-chorin, or Beth-chorin. And all the inhabitants of Beth-chorin were mighty men. One of them would not flee from before 1,000 men, and they fought on that night upon the castle, and their shouts were heard on that night from afar, and the earth quaked at their shouting. And all the sons of Jacob were afraid of those men, as they were not accustomed to fight in the dark, and they were greatly confounded. And the sons of Jacob cried unto mighty God Ahiah, saying, Give help unto us, O mighty God Ahiah, deliver us, that we may not die by the hands of the uncircumcised men. And mighty God Ahiah hearkened to the voice of the sons of Jacob, and mighty God Ahiah caused great terror and confusion to seize the people of Beth-chorin, and they fought amongst themselves, the one with the other, in the darkness of night, and smote each other in great numbers. And the sons of Jacob, knowing that mighty God Ahiah had brought a spirit of perverseness among those men, and that they fought each man with his neighbor, went forth from among the bands of the people of Beth-chorin, and went as far as the descent of the castle of Beth-chorin, and farther, and they tarried there securely with their young men on that night. And the people of Beth-chorin fought with the whole night, one man with his brother, and the other with his neighbor, and they cried out in every direction upon the castle, and their cry was heard at a distance, and the whole earth shook at their voice, for they were powerful above all the people of the earth. And the inhabitants of the city of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivitites, and all the kings of Canaan, and also those who were on the other side of Jordan, heard the noise of the shouting on that night. And they said, Surely these are the battles of the Hebrews, who are fighting against the 7 cities, who came nigh unto them, and who can stand against those Hebrews. And all the inhabitants of the city of the Canaanites, and all those who were on the other side of the Jordan, were greatly afraid of the sons of Jacob, for they said, Behold, the same will be done to us as was done to those cities, for who can stand against their mighty strength? And the cries of the Amorites were very great on that night, and continued to increase, and they smote each other till morning, and number of them were killed. And the morning appeared, and all the sons of Jacob rose up at daybreak, and went up to the castle, and they smote those who remained of the Caananites in a terrible manner, and they were all killed in the castle. And the sixth day appeared, and all the inhabitants of Canaan saw at a distance all the people of Bethchorin lying dead in the castle of Bethchorin, and strewed about as the carcasses of lambs and goats. And the sons of Jacob led all the spoil which they had captured from Gaash, and went to Bethchorin, and they found the city full of people like the sand of the sea, and they fought with them, and the sons of Jacob smote them there till evening time. And the sons of Jacob did unto Bethchorin as they had done to Gaash and Tapnach, and as they had done to Chazar, to Sartan, and to Shiloh. And the sons of Jacob took with them the spoil of Bethchorin, and all the spoil of the cities, and on that day they went home to Shechem. And the sons of Jacob came home to the city of Shechem, and they remained without the city, and they then rested there from the war, and tarried there all night. And all their servants together with all the spoil that they had taken from the cities, they left without the city, and they did not enter the city, for they said, Peradventure there may be yet more fighting against us, and they may come to besiege us in Shechem. And Jacob and his sons and their servants remained on that night and the next day in the portion of the field which Jacob had purchased from Hamor for 5 shekels, and all that they had captured was with them. And all the booty which the sons of Jacob had captured was in the portion of the field, immense as the sand upon the seashore. And the inhabitants of the land observed them from afar, and all the inhabitants of the land were afraid of the sons of Jacob, who had done this thing, for no king from the days of old had ever done the like. And the 7 kings of the Caananites resolved to make peace with the sons of Jacob, for they were greatly afraid of their lives on account of the sons of Jacob. And on that day, being the 7th day, Japhiah king of Hebron sent secretly to the king of Ai, and to the king of Gibeon, and to the king of Shalem, and to the king of Adullam, and to the king of Lachish, and to the king of Jasher, and to all the Canaanitish kings who were under their subjection, saying, Go up with me, and come to me, that we may go to the sons of Jacob, and I will make peace with them, and form a treaty with them, lest all your lands be destroyed by the swords of the sons of Jacob, as they did to Shechem, and the cities around it, as you have heard and seen. And when you come to me, do not come with many men, but let every king bring his 3 head captains, and every captain bring 3 of his officers. And come all of you to Hebron, and we will go together to the sons of Jacob, and supplicate them that they shall form a treaty of peace with us. And all those kings did as the king of Hebron had sent to them, for they were all under his counsel and command. And all the kings of Canaan assembled to go to the sons of Jacob to make peace with them. And the sons of Jacob returned and went to the portion of the field that was in Shechem, for they did not put confidence in the kings of the land. And the sons of Jacob returned and remained in the portion of the field 10 days, and no one came to make war with them. And when the sons of Jacob saw that there was no appearance of war, they all assembled and went to the city of Shechem, and the sons of Jacob remained in Shechem. And at the expiration of 40 days, all the kings of the Amorites assembled from all their places, and came to Hebron to Japhiah king of Hebron. And the number of kings that came to Hebron to make peace with the sons of Jacob were 21 kings, and the number of captains that came with them was 69, and their men were 189, and all these kings and their men rested by Mount Hebron. And the king of Hebron went out with his 3 captains and 9 men, and these kings resolved to go to the sons of Jacob to make peace. And they said unto the king of Hebron, Go thou before us with thy men, and speak for us unto the sons of Jacob, and we will come after thee and confirm thy words. And the king of Hebron did so. And the sons of Jacob heard that all the kings of Canaan had gathered together and rested in Hebron. And the sons of Jacob sent 4 of their servants as spies, saying, Go and spy these kings, and search and examine their men, whether they are few or many. And if they are but few in number, number them all and come back. And the servants of Jacob went secretly to these kings, and did as the sons of Jacob had commanded them. And on that day they came back to the sons of Jacob, and said unto them, We came unto those kings, and they are but few in number, and we numbered them all, and behold, there are 288 kings and men. And the sons of Jacob said, They are but few in number, therefore we will not all go out to them. And in the morning the sons of Jacob rose up and chose 62 of their men, and 10 of the sons of Jacob went with them, and they girt on their weapons of war, for they said, They are coming to make war with us, for they knew not that they were coming to make peace with them. And the sons of Jacob went with their servants to the gate of Shechem toward those kings, and their father Jacob was with them. And when they had come forth, behold, the kings of Hebron and his 3 captains and 9 men with him were coming along the road against the sons of Jacob. And the sons of Jacob lifted up their eyes and saw at a distance Jasher, king of Hebron, with his captains coming toward them. And the sons of Jacob took their stand at the place of the gate of Shechem, and did not proceed. And the king of Hebron continued to advance, he and his captains, until he came nigh to the sons of Jacob, and he had his captains bow down to them to the ground. And the king of Hebron sat with his captains before Jacob and his sons. And the sons of Jacob said unto him, What has befallen thee, O king of Hebron? Why hast thou come to us this day? And dost thou require from us? And the king of Hebron said unto Jacob, I beseech thee, my lord, all the kings of the Canaanites have this day come to make peace with you. And the sons of Jacob heard the words of the king of Hebron, and they would not consent to his proposals, for the sons of Jacob had no faith in him, for they imagined the king of Hebron had spoken deceitfully to them. And the king of Hebron knew from the words of the sons of Jacob that they did not believe his words. And the king of Hebron approached nearer to Jacob, and said unto him, I beseech thee, my lord, to be assured that all these kings have come to you on peaceable terms, for they have not come with all their men, neither did they bring their weapons of war with them, for they have come to speak peace from my lord and his sons. And the sons of Jacob answered the kings of Hebron, saying, Send thou to all these kings, and if thou speakest truth unto us, let them each come singly before us, and if they come unto us unarmed, we shall then know that they seek peace from us. And Jasher, king of Hebron, sent one of his men to the king, and they all came before the sons of Jacob, and bowed down to them to the ground. And these kings sat before Jacob and his sons, and they spoke unto them, saying, We have heard all that you did unto the kings of the Amorites with your sword, and exceedingly mighty men, so that no man could stand up before you. And we were afraid of you for the sake of our lives, lest it should befall us as it did to them. So we have come unto you to form a treaty of peace between us, and now therefore contract with us a covenant of peace and truth, that you will not meddle with us, inasmuch as we have not meddled with you. And the sons of Jacob knew that they had really come to seek peace from them, and the sons of Jacob listened to them and formed a covenant with them. And the sons of Jacob swore unto them that they would not meddle with them, and all the kings of the Canaanites swore also to them, and the sons of Jacob made them tributary from that day forward. And after this all the captains of the kings came with their men before Jacob with presents in their hands for Jacob and his sons, and they bowed down to him to the ground. And these kings then urged the sons of Jacob and begged of them to return all the spoil they had captured from the 7 cities of the Amorites. And the sons of Jacob did so, and they returned all that they had captured, the women and the little ones, the cattle and all the spoils which they had taken, and they sent them off, and they went away each to his city. And all these kings again bowed down to the sons of Jacob, and they sent or brought them many gifts in those days. And the sons of Jacob sent off these kings and their men, and they went peaceably away from them to their cities. And the sons of Jacob also returned to their home to Shechem. And there were peace from that day forward between the sons of Jacob and the kings of the Canaanites until the children of Israel came to inherit the land of Canaan. And that's the end to chapter 40. Thank you for listening.